Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Todd Klindt's SharePoint Netcast number 213, recorded live on a beautiful Monday evening, September 8th, 2014. I am your host and the new host of the Late Late Show, Todd Klindt. So yes, I'll be replacing Craig Ferguson. They put some other guy's name out there in the press release today. I'm sure that was a big accident. They'll get that all sorted out by tomorrow. I'm having my people talk to their people. I've got a little robotic guy that's going to talk to Jeff. It's all, we'll get it taken care of. Don't worry about that. But while I'm still here, doing this netcast with you folks and all that, that means I'm still working for those great folks at Rackspace. So we got the flags, we got all that kind of stuff. We got the PowerPoint template, and all of this is brought to you by the fine folks at Rackspace. You can go to sharepoint.rackspace.com and find out about all the great SharePoint things that Rackspace has to offer. Single tenant SharePoint, multi-tenant SharePoint, just anything you can dream of, anything your little SharePoint loving heart desires, Rackspace will take care of for you at sharepoint.rackspace.com. And maybe here in a week or two, we'll have some other cool stuff to talk about. But right now, the coolest site on the web, sharepoint.rackspace.com. All right. So as always, we'll start out with this week's production notes. So what did you think about last week's netcast? It was awesome. Far and away the best netcast I've ever done. I thought about just hanging up the towel after that because there's just no way I can top the fabulous... Yeah, there was no netcast last week. So for those of us in the States, last week was Labor Day, was a holiday. And so I took the time off, did not do a netcast. I gave you guys the week off, didn't do a netcast. Worked on my tan, and so I'm looking very bronze, beautiful, all that kind of stuff. But I also took the time to rebuild my netcasting box. For the last, month or so, my netcasting box has been kind of giving me the business. The video's been, the recording's been stopping and that kind of stuff. And so last week, starting on Monday, I backed the box up, completely paved it, and reinstalled it all with Windows 8.1, replacing Windows 7, and, updated the BIOS and took compressed air can to it. Blew all the cobwebs out and all that kind of stuff. Nearly killed one of my cats, but that's a completely different story. And everything seems to be working fine. So I spent a day or so, or not a day, spent an hour or so today kind of testing everything, testing the stream. That seems to be working. We got both webcams going. We got the fancy Yeti Pro mic going. And the hooligans are out in full force in the chat room, so it's good stuff. So we'll kind of keep an eye on it here for the next few weeks, though. We'll talk about what the next few weeks are going to be doing later in the netcast. But so far, so good. I think we're in good shape. So that means that the video now is not going to be quite as fuzzy or out of sync. So while it is funny to imagine me in one of those 70s kung fu movies with the voice and the mouth not quite lining up, that's hysterical. Everybody loves that. I think the real loss here, though, is the fact that I just look better in fuzzy video. And now that we're going to have, decent quality video again, I'm thinking about doing that old trick where I smudge a little Vaseline on the camera, just kind of soften things up a little bit. I'm not getting any younger, gray hairs coming in, wrinkles around my eyes. So we'll see. Maybe after I get the video fixed and we get high quality video, everybody will ask me to go back to the bad video. It could happen. It could happen. But one thing that all of this testing today reminded me of was two things. Number one, those of you that watch the stream live, and there's, 20 some of you in the chat room right now, for $4 a month, you can sign up for Ustream. You can pay Ustream, and you'll buy out all the commercials. So you won't have any commercial interruptions while you're watching this fine masterpiece. But then any of the other cool stuff on Ustream, also no commercials. $4 a month. Yes, you could probably feed 4 orphans in Africa for $4 a month. I forget what I haven't seen any of those Sally Struthers commercials lately, but I think it's about $4 a month to save a whole village of orphans down there. But probably a better way to spend that $4 a month is to buy the Ustream subscription. And once you do that, you register with Ustream. Ustream is what happens when I come online here. You scream. The other thing that you can do, though, when you sign up with Ustream, is you can set up an alert and you can subscribe to this channel. And then when I do things like pop on in the middle of the afternoon to test my rig, you'll get an email that tells you that I'm online. And when I did that today, I didn't tweet anything until after I was done, but a couple of folks that had subscribed, had alerts set up in Ustream showed up because they had subscribed in Ustream. So that's kind of handy. So if you're wondering, if you're like, oh, I would join that stupid Netcast of Todd's and heckle and tell him how dumb he is, but you forget, signing up for Ustream and subscribing to this channel is one way to do that. So thanks to those guys. And that reminded me of another thing. One of the people that got that was a friend of mine, Max, in Germany, and he's like, hey, I thought you were doing one in European time. So I was excited because it was, in the middle of the afternoon. I'm like, well, no, sorry, Max, I'm not. I'm still going to be doing it at 2:30 a.m. your time. But what that did remind me is I've been threatening to do a European Netcast here for a while. So I told Max that I was going to do it next month. Now, Max is in Germany, so I could kind of work out an Oktoberfest thing, but Oktoberfest actually starts in September, and I'm going to be busy this month. We'll talk about that later. But sometime in October, I will do a Netcast, probably 8:30 in the morning, Central, so probably 12 hours earlier than normal, but I will do one European Netcast so that the folks in Europe can stream it live and heckle and enjoy the the immediate joy of telling me that I've screwed something up and just watching my face drop when they correct me. So that will be sometime next month. I'm going to talk to some European folks and kind of see what days work for that. If you're in Europe, or, just want me to go on during the day, whatever, shoot me an email or tweet me. You can tweet me at Todd Klindt on Twitter, or you can email me todd.klindt@rackspace.com and tell me when you would like me to do my European style Netcast. But that will happen sometime in the month of October, 2014 CE. All right, so topics. So like I said, I did not do a Netcast last week. A whole bunch of things have happened in the last couple of weeks that I wanted to talk to you guys about. I got a bunch of topics tonight. Not sure how far into them I'm going to get, but we'll hit it. We'll do as much as we can. The first one that I wanted to talk about is that the Cyan patch for Lumia phones for the so the Windows 8.1. The final thing with the firmware and all that kind of stuff is finally available for the Lumia 920 on AT&T. You can go to, that's the wrong link. Those of you in the chat room, ignore that link and instead click this link. Promise me you're not going to click that first link. So I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Nokia has a web page up, and it'll be in the lower third here and in the show notes, where if you have a Nokia Lumia phone and you're waiting for the Windows Phone 8.1 update, you can find out whether it's available for your device or not. And just this last week, it became available for my Lumia 920, so I got all that. And it's already been out for the 1520 and the 1020 for a while, and the 520 for a while also. So you can download that, check that page to see where it's at. So funny story about that. So if months and months and months ago, I told you all about the developer preview, or I guess more correctly called the preview for developers for Windows 8.1. And that was a program you could download in the marketplace, and then you could get updates for Windows 8.1 to your device ahead of time, kind of beta-ish, but kind of not. And I told you, if you do that, don't worry. When the final 8.1 comes out, you will get it. There will be no problems. And then turns out there were some problems. What Microsoft found was there are a few devices that companies that were using BitLocker. So for instance, if I was running a company, Acme Rockets, and I could set a policy that said if any mobile devices are getting email from the Acme Rockets Exchange server, they have to encrypt it all. They have to use BitLocker. And what Microsoft found was there were a few cases where there were phones that were using BitLocker, and when they upgraded from the preview from developers to the full Windows 8.1, it went kaput. it killed the phone. And you're not supposed to be able to kill these things. So they were kind of freaked out about that. But it did cause some problems. So they haven't quite got that all figured out. So those of us that were running the preview, we weren't getting the final 8.1 bits. Now let's talk a little bit about what that means. The 8.1 that we had was not a beta. It was fully vetted. It was the operating system. But what we didn't have was all of those carrier-specific things that AT&T throws in for me. And we also didn't have some firmware pieces. And that was kind of what the whole Cyan thing brought. So we already had the OS, but we didn't have the firmware and the carrier-specific stuff. So we were kind of stuck with that, and the experience was pretty good. And actually the preview folks had newer bits than Cyan, but we talked about this a couple weeks ago. The fix for that was pretty simple, and it was just like 3 or 4 steps. Number one, and this is what I ended up doing: go into your phone that's got the preview on it. Make sure you've got everything backed up to the cloud. So if you go to settings, backups, you can back up all your settings and applications and stuff to OneDrive. You can back up all your pictures and all that to OneDrive and get everything off of the phone and backed up to OneDrive. And then download a tool from Nokia. And Nokia has a tool that you run on your PC with your phone attached. And what it does is it will wipe your phone and it will reinstall Windows on it. But when it does it, it will do the non-developer preview version of Windows. And when that happens, then you're not in the developer preview anymore, and then you can get the upgrade. So that's what people have been doing to get around until Microsoft gets this preview problem fixed. So 10 days ago or so, I saw something on Twitter. Somebody's like, "Hey, my Lumia 920 just got the upgrade from AT&T. I'm so excited." And I'm like, "Oh, it got the upgrade." So like one of the little Yippy dogs that just gets so excited and runs around in circles and pees on your carpet, I loaded that tool up on my computer, plugged my phone in because I'd already checked my backups were good, wiped my phone. And when the tool put Windows Phone back on, it put Windows Phone 8 back on. And I thought, that was strange. All the people who'd done it with the 1520 and the 1020, and when I did it to my 520, it actually put 8.1 on when I used that tool. I didn't have to upgrade over the wire. But that's weird. I'll do some tests. So I did the whole system thing, check for updates. There's an update. Hooray! It wasn't Windows Phone 8.1. So what I'd done is I jumped the gun. So I essentially wiped my phone for no reason so that I could install a previous version of Windows Phone on there, to which I had to then immediately download the preview for developers and, upgrade to the place that I'd been 3 hours before that and still not having the Cyan patch. So what while that sucked, and I kind of wish I hadn't done it, I did learn a couple of valuable things. So number one was that I'd made a backup in Windows 8.1, but it did not expose itself in Windows Phone 8. So when you do a backup, they seem to be build specific, and that comes up for another reason. So I put 8 on and then started configuring things, and I had to do it all manually. My start screen was all goofed up and stuff like that. So I put the preview for developers on and got Windows Phone 8.1, but still couldn't restore my backup. So that's where I learned my second thing. The first thing that I learned is backups are build specific. So there's like a range of builds that they support. The second thing is there's no way to manually trigger a restore except to reset your phone. So the tool put Windows Phone 8 on my phone, did the whole update, did not get 8.1. Installed the preview for developers, got that, did the update, and then got Windows Phone 8.1, so I got folders and all that kind of stuff, but then I didn't have the option for restoring my backup. So then I had to go in and reset my phone after it had 8.1 on it, and then when I was resetting my phone went out to OneDrive and said, "Hey, there's an 8.1 backup out there, would you like to restore it?" So then I was able to restore my phone. So that was good, knowing kind of how all those pieces fit together. One thing I discovered is some things maintain, stuff in backup, some things don't. For instance, Cortana lost a bunch of my reminders. Not the worst thing ever, but if you don't know about it ahead of time, you don't know to take a screenshot or whatever those. And then some apps would save passwords, some wouldn't. So if you end up going this route, if you end up, now that if you've got a 920 and you use the tool, kind of go through, take some notes. Chances are most everything will be saved, but a few things probably will not. And Doug Heminger, it's making him cry. He's a developer though. He gets kind of weepy. I've seen him cry during commercials. It happens. But last week, the actual Cyan thing came out. So I went through it all again, though this time I was a seasoned pro. I knew exactly what was going to happen. When the tool put Windows Phone on my 920, then it put 8.1 on. And then when I did the setup the first time, it saw my backup and everything was great. So I got to reset everything up again. It was good times. But like my start screen and all that, So don't be afraid of the process. It's not bad. And the whole thing, in all honesty, the time that I did it right was 20 minutes, half an hour tops. I mean, it just wasn't that long. And again, when it came back up, the right time, it pulled my backup, and so I was up and running pretty quick. I had to put like my email password in, I think, for a couple of things, like my Facebook password. But other than that, it was all pretty good. So don't be afraid of the process. There's a bunch of places out there that have it set up. And if you've got questions, like I said, hit me up on Twitter, email me, whatever. I'll walk you through it. All right. So one of the things that I did in my off time is I did some blogging. I blog here and there, talk about a few things. I like to get out there and do some blogging. And one of the things that I blogged about was a blog post called "OneDrive is Great, Then Why Do I Pay for Dropbox?" And this was kind of a conversation that had been going around the blogosphere and all that kind of stuff. A couple of weeks ago, Dropbox increased all of the Dropbox Pro accounts from 100 gig to 1 terabyte for the same amount. So for $100 a year, your Dropbox account can be 1 terabyte, which is massive and huge. And that's something that I'd been paying for. So I got just one morning I woke up and had 900 gig more space in Dropbox, which was awesome. Big fan of that. Use Dropbox a lot. So that happened. So all the tech journalists and nerds and everybody out there's talking about that. And I was listening to Windows Weekly after that came out, and Paul Thurrott was talking about that, and he was he's kind of cynical and kind of curmudgeonly, but he was saying that he didn't understand why people were so gaga for Dropbox, because for $100 a year you got a terabyte of storage, but that same $100 a year would get you an Office 365 subscription that would give you 5 accounts with 1 terabyte of storage and Office, Word, Excel, all that kind of stuff. And so he didn't think that Dropbox made a lot of sense even at $100 for a terabyte. And so that gave me the opportunity to post this blog post, and it's something that I've talked about in the past. So obviously, as an MVP, I use the crud out of Microsoft products, and a huge cheerleader for them, but sometimes they're just not the best solution for the problem. And in this case, that's the issue. So basically my blog post, and this is conversations that I've had with people over the years, was why I continue to use Dropbox. So one of the reasons is the 2 gigabyte file size limit in OneDrive. And in my blog post, I apologize that I kind of conflated OneDrive and OneDrive for Business, though I tried to keep them straight, but in a couple of places I didn't do the best job ever. But they're all kind of in the same thing. People think about them the same. So both OneDrive and OneDrive for Business have file size limits. In OneDrive, it's 2 gigabytes. In OneDrive for Business, it's 256 meg or 250 meg. And just a bunch of stuff that I do with Dropbox, I need files bigger than 2 gig. A lot of times when I'm shuffling the video files around for this Netcast, I'm syncing them around, they're bigger than 2 gig, especially if I record really high quality videos. Things like that. I've had virtual machines up there so I could share them, things like that. The 2 gig thing just doesn't cut it. And so that's one of the reasons Dropbox's file size limit is whatever your account is. So if you have 90 gig free, your upload limit is 90 gig. So that was one of the things that I liked. Another thing that I like about Dropbox is the way sharing works. So if I share a folder with somebody in Dropbox, in the Dropbox client, they can choose to have that folder synced to their local file system. And then when I upload files on my end, they just magically appear on their file system on their end. And the biggest example I have of that is I have a folder shared out with my mother and I have pictures of my kids in that folder. And then she has that folder set up as a slideshow for her screensaver. And then all she knows is she looks over her computer some days and there's new files, or, new pictures of her grandkids over there, and she gets all very excited. But with OneDrive, if I share a folder with somebody, the only way they can access that shared folder is in the web. So there's no automatic download. There's no syncing it through the sync option or anything like that. And that kind of stinks. I don't like that. OneDrive for Business is a little different because that's actually SharePoint on the back end. So you can sync SharePoint folders if you want to. A little different for that. The other thing that I don't like about OneDrive is if I share a file with somebody, just a single file, and I paste a link into Twitter or whatever, if they click that link, it is a direct link to that file. I mean, the file name is in the URL, for goodness sakes. And so that makes it easier if people want to use something to download it or whatever. In OneDrive, if I send somebody a link, it opens up a OneDrive thing, and then the file, it's like a wrapper for the file. So if they want to download it, they got to grab it inside of there and download it. It's more clicks, it's more stuff to do. And so I just don't like that either in OneDrive. So those were kind of my main things that I didn't like about it. And so I published that like on I think it was like a Friday night. I forget what, the 30th. So Saturday night. So I was, just sitting there watching TV, watching reruns of CSI or whatever, posting my blog post, didn't think much would happen. Little did I know, apparently, people with great amounts of pull and authority in Microsoft read my blog even on the weekends, because no sooner than I posted that blog post chastising OneDrive and just calling it down to the carpet for all of its inadequacies, within a couple of days, Microsoft released that they were going to be removing the file size limitation in OneDrive. And I think it's very clear that you all have me to thank for that, because people have been complaining about that file size limitation for years, literally years. I post a blog post on a Saturday night, and by like Monday, Microsoft is like, we are all over it. Sorry for the inconvenience. And they've said they're going to remove that 2 GB file size limit in OneDrive. Now, it's kind of been all over. The link I put in the chat room is to a wpcentral.com article about it, but in that article they also talk about how you can follow the OneDrive blog as if we weren't all feverishly following the OneDrive blog anyway. So you can go to blog.onedrive and you can find out when that all happens. So I think, I'm getting lots of accolades in the chat room. You people are too kind. But clearly, that was the issue. I just hadn't said anything about it. And now that I've voiced our concerns, they will be fixing that. Now, what they haven't said is they haven't given a time frame on it. They've said that they're testing it with some folks. I don't know if those folks know it. I haven't tried to upload a file greater than 2 gig, but that particular limitation is going away soon. So you're all very welcome, and it's not about me, it's about you guys. But I am glad to see that, because I do like OneDrive. I've got 300 and some gig of storage in OneDrive, and I use it for a lot of stuff. But that file size limitation has bitten me, and I'm glad to see that that's going to be going away. So Laura Rogers in the chat room at Wonder Laura is saying you are more articulate than the random bitching they hear on the interwebs. Yeah, I try not to do random bitching so much. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes not. But that was good news. And I think everybody's going to win as they start to fix some of these OneDrive issues. And kind of tangential, and something we were talking about in the chat room before I went live, was the Android client for OneDrive and OneDrive for Business have gotten collapsed. And that is a symptom of Microsoft going through it for some of these things, like, Skype and Link are kind of the same thing. OneDrive and OneDrive for Business are kind of the same thing. And Microsoft is kind of collapsing these groups and having them work together. And one of the first signs of that is the OneDrive and OneDrive for Business client being merged on Android. And I think that shows, and then this file size thing, I think that shows they're really getting serious about all this. So thanks for all that. So another exciting thing on the Microsoft front, and great blog fodder, excuse me, is the PowerShell version 5 preview. Very excited about this. So like I talk about in my blog post, these previews have been coming out for a couple of months now. There was one in July, and I think there might have been one before that. But I've kind of had a busy summer, and I haven't had a chance to look at them all. But I did finally download the September preview for PowerShell 5, and it's going to be called the Windows Management Framework, or WMF 5 preview. But that is PowerShell, all but PowerShell, all that is PowerShell. And so I grabbed that over the weekend, and all kinds of great stuff in there. And one of, so running previews and all that, there's kind of some risk to that. You know, it's kind of a pain. But so I posted that the preview is out there, but I also wanted to kind of give you guys some stuff to wet your whistle to get you excited about putting the preview out. So I put two of my favorite new features in the preview. The first one, and probably the biggest one, is that the transcript now works inside of the integrated scripting environment, the ISE. So this is something that I have been crying myself to sleep over for years probably. And that comes from the fact that I do a lot of noodling around in PowerShell, and I'm honestly not very good at PowerShell. And so the ISE, it kind of holds your hand, and it's got good tab completion. It shows you your parameters, and it's really gentle. It does everything short of, you know, giving you a cupcake when you start using PowerShell. But one of the problems that it had was that you couldn't do the transcript with it. So any of you guys that have sat in on any of my PowerShell classes or any of that kind of stuff know that one of my favorite things ever, every time I open up PowerShell, first thing I type is start-transcript. And that keeps a log of all the things that I type in PowerShell and all of the things that PowerShell tells me back. And it's a great learning tool because I can go back later and figure out what I did. When I teach classes, I like to take that PowerShell transcript that I use and then publish it out so that people in the class don't have to take notes. But I couldn't ever use that with the ISE. And when PowerShell first came out, the ISE was kind of cruddy, not that great, honestly. So not being able to use the ISE, not a big loss, not a lot of weeping done with that. But a couple of versions ago, the ISE put its big boy pants on, and it's been pretty good. And so then I was really conflicted. Do I use the ISE? Do I use the transcript? Oh, what's a boy to do? So I was super excited when the version 5 preview came out, and you can now do the transcript with the ISE. So now I just work in the ISE on the boxes that I've got this on. So that was pretty good. The second thing was there is support for zip files, which is nice. And that's one of those things that I just could not believe didn't already exist inside of PowerShell. And that is the ability to natively compress or decompress zip files inside of PowerShell. And I mean, there's some kind of ways to do it that have kind of clued you, but now it's just built right in. So you've got two commandlets, and that is, I don't have my notes in front of me right now, compress archive and expand archive. And basically it's just creating zip files and all that. So somebody on Twitter, I was kind of talking back and forth, and they're like, you know, that those commandlet names are kind of weird. Compress archive doesn't make a lot of sense. Add archive would have made more sense. But the reason that it's compress archive is because it's got an update flag. So if you've got an existing zip file, you can use that same commandlet to add files to an existing zip file or create a new zip file. So it's got those, and that's been pretty good. I've really appreciated. I played with it a little bit. Haven't used that as much as I've done the ISE thing. So if you do anything with PowerShell, you got to go out and try that out. Now, again, this is a preview. Treat it like a beta. So don't be putting it on your production boxes. I meant to put in my blog post, but I forgot whether this would work with SharePoint or not. And I don't know, because this preview will only install on Windows Server 2012 R2 or Windows 8.1. And all of the boxes that I had sitting around that were running SharePoint 2013 were all Windows Server 2012, not R2. And so I didn't have it on there. But again, only do this in test environments. Don't do this in production. Don't be one of those guys that I make fun of for testing in production. But if the PowerShell prompt doesn't work, the PowerShell v5, you can probably do the whole dash version thing and open up your PowerShell prompt in an older version to do the SharePoint thing. I'll test that in a bit. Okay, so powering through. Oh my goodness, we're already at a half an hour. I can't believe it. But I do have a couple of the things that I wanted to talk to, and I'll throw both of these links out in the chat room at the same time. They're going to be kind of related. So a couple of cool just Windows things have come out in the last couple of weeks. One of them is a company called ZOTAC. And ZOTAC is going to be putting out what they're calling a pico PC, the Pico 320 or the PI320. And what this is this is a full computer, full running computer that will come with Windows 8.1 with Bing, and we'll talk about that in a minute. It's about the size of a deck of cards, and it's a full computer running full Windows. So it's got an Atom processor, it's got 32 gigs of storage, it's got 2 gig of RAM, and it's got USB ports and HDMI and network and all that kind of stuff. And it's the size, it's like the size of my phone. It's literally this big, well, a little thicker because it's got a Ethernet jack on it, but it runs full Windows, and it's going to be around $200. So there's a lot of cool uses for this, and on the ZOTAC site that I sent the link to, they show it like mounted on the back of a monitor, and it could be your computer. It could be just just the thing that you use and not take up any space. What's interesting about this is that the Atom processor and the 2 gig of RAM seems kind of crappy, but it's the same same specs that this tablet has. And I've been using this tablet. This is the Dell Venue 8 Pro. I use the crud out of this little guy, and Windows 8.1 runs pretty well on 2 gig of RAM and an Atom processor. Now, the size of the screen has a lot to do with that. I can't have a lot of things running at the same time on a 7-inch screen, or I guess an 8-inch screen. So that helps. I'm not going to be installing Visual Studio and compiling a bunch of code on it. But for day-to-day stuff, email, web browsing, Twitter, funny cat videos, that kind of stuff, it's more than enough. It's absolutely more than enough. And so this little box here, this little ZOTAC box, is going to be the same way. And so I think it's notable for a couple of things. The size is really small, and the price is really cheap. And a while back, a couple of years ago, I was getting these little Android stick computers and hooking them up to my TV and doing some crazy stuff with it. And I imagine I'll end up with one of these ZOTAC boxes before everything's said and done. And one of the things that I use with it, I've had a tablet hooked up. I've got a 40-inch TV in my office. You guys can't see it, but that's what I keep pointing at. I've had a Windows tablet like this one, and I'll talk about it in a second here, like this one, hooked up to my TV, and I've got this little gyro mouse. So it's a mouse. And it moves when I move my hand, so I don't have to rub it on something. It's got TV, it's learning remote, so it's got all my TV controls, volume, power, input, all that kind of stuff. It's got a keyboard and a mouse, and it's completely wireless. So if I've got a computer hooked up to my TV there, I can use this little guy and just swing it around and click and all that. The Metro interface, the modern interface, works great with remotes like this. The desktop doesn't work worth a poop, but the Metro interface with its big square buttons and all that works great with a remote like this. So one of these ZOTAC boxes is going to be great for things like a home theater PC, an HD PC, something like that, or just any kind of workloads that you want on a TV, something. So I mean, and it's $200. So that's just, that's crazy great. So the other thing that happened that was that came out about the same time is Toshiba released that they're going to be putting out a new Windows tablet. So it's going to be, I think theirs is going to be 7. This is 8 inches. Theirs is going to be 7. It's going to come with Windows with Bing, which again we'll talk about in a minute, and it's going to be $120. $120 for a full Windows tablet. Now, this, and I hate to use the phrase for this, but this is kind of a game changer. This kind of changes how I look at tablets. So if you guys remember when Windows 8 first came out, oh, those were dark days when Windows 8 first came out. Microsoft had some really strict hardware specifications on the devices that OEMs could sell Windows 8 on. Had to have a certain amount of RAM and certain high resolutions and things like that. And what that ended up doing was making all of the Windows 8 PCs that came out super expensive, which nobody would buy, and it was all new, and they were afraid of the OS, and the cheapest thing they could buy that ran it was like $1,300, and so it was a big problem. And last year at TechEd in Europe, I was talking to the Microsoft guy that did the demos there, John Devon, and I was telling him that, part of the, at that point I had all Android devices, and I said, part of the reason that I have so many Android devices is because when the tablets first came out, I could buy an Android tablet, a crappy one, for like $100, and it was horrible, and the screen sucked, and the battery life was terrible. But I got to play with the OS, and I got to see the apps, and it got me excited. And then I got rid of that. Actually, I gave it to Eric Harlan, and I bought a better one, and then another better one, and that's what got me into Android. And I told him that that's what Microsoft needed to do with Windows 8. They needed to come out with some cheap Windows 8 devices so people could get comfortable with Windows 8. Once again, I've got my finger on the pulse of the problems at Microsoft, and that's what they're doing. So now the pendulum's kind of swung the other way. So this $120 tablet from Toshiba has 1 gig of RAM, which may not be enough. 2 gigs, not bad. 1 gig's getting a little close. Atom processor, 16 gig of storage, but it's got an SD slot and all that. But now these tablets are like $100 a piece. And the reason I think that these things are game changers is because it opens up the possibilities of what you can use these tablets for and the way you think of them. So I talked about that they come, both the ZOTAC box and the Windows tablet come with Windows 8 with Bing. And so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that. Windows 8 with Bing is free. It costs the OEM nothing to license it. So that's how we're getting these price points down. And I think the device has to cost less than $200 or $250 or something for you to be able to put Windows with Bing on it. But all it means, it's a completely functional version of Windows. Everything that you can do so this came with regular Windows 8.1. Everything I can do with Windows on here, I can do on a Windows with Bing box. It's not crippled. It's, like the starter editions of Windows 7 were. The only restriction is that the OEM cannot change the default search engine. When the device gets in the customer's hands, Bing has to be the default search engine. That's the only restriction. So after that, when the customer gets the device, so when I get my $120 tablet, I can go in and change my search engine to whatever, Ask Jeeves, AltaVista, Lycos, whatever the kids are using these days. It's just that the OEM can't do it. So basically the OEM can't double dip. They can't get a free OS and then get money from Google or whoever for putting that on. But that's the only restriction. Everything else works just fine. So because we've got these fully featured devices, we can do all kinds of crazy things with them. And so I've got this Dell Venue 8 Pro, which I use all the time for any number of things. But a while back, Woot had the Acer Iconia tablet for like $100. Same size device, same specs. And I bought one of those because I have a problem, honestly. I've got an addiction to things with on-off switches. And so now I've got this device, and I've been thinking about different ways to use it. And now that we're going to have these tablets that anywhere you're going to be able to pick up a Windows tablet for $100, there's all kinds of crazy things you can do with it. Like if you want to, if you've got a treadmill at home and you want to have a tablet to watch videos or music or whatever, you can just get a $100 tablet and leave it there, and it can just stay there, and it can be on your treadmill, and you don't have to worry about carrying stuff around. You can leave one in the kitchen for looking at recipes and things like that. You can use one if you get something like the HD Home Run. An HD Home Run is a little device that hooks up to your cable or your antenna, and it's a tuner, and then you can tune it across the network. So you could use one of these devices to tune cable or antenna stuff and watch TV on your tablet, watch live TV. I talked about that other tablet that I've got and what I've done, and this is going to sound way more salacious and crazy than it really is, but I've got it in my bathroom. Not for the reason you guys are all thinking, but because when I get up in the morning, I get in the morning and I go shower and I'm getting ready in the morning, that tablet's sitting there and it's, it's obviously hooked up to the internet and all that, but I've got all the tiles on the front page are specific for getting ready in the morning. So like it's got my calendar, that live tile is large size, so I can see what's going on that day. It's got the weather tile, large size, so I can see what the forecast is and what the temperature is. And it's got my email tab, large, so I can see what my top email things are. It's got the news, the Bing News one, large, so I can see what the headlines are that are rotating through. But it's just, great. And then also I've got a Bluetooth speaker in my shower, so I can sing in the shower. I am an awesome singer in the shower. So that device hooks up to that too, and it's all touchscreen and all that. And since it's signed into the same account as all my other stuff, music that I buy in one place shows up on there, videos that I buy. But it's just a great little thing. I've got information right there, and I don't have to worry about carrying it around. I don't have to worry about leaving it in the bag. I just leave it there because it's $100. There's nothing to it. So like I said, it really kind of changes. If you want to get one for your kids, it's $100. I have cheap little Android tablets for my kids that we use when we travel. It's loaded up with videos and music and all that kind of stuff. It's the thing that's kept me from throwing them out the window multiple times. So it's a pretty good thing. So the other thing about this Toshiba one is for $120, you get a fully functional Windows tablet, but it also comes with a year of Office 365, which is kind of weird because you're not going to use the desktop on that device. The screen's 7 inches. But there's a couple of things to think about. With Office 365, you get Office, so you get the Word, Excel, all that kind of stuff. And at some point, they're going to come out with the touch version of Office, the codename Gemini, but it's going to be a touch-first Office version, so kind of like the Mac has. So that's going to come out. You're going to get that if that comes out in the next year. And also in the next year, the next version of Windows, Threshold, is going to be coming out. And that will hopefully improve everything, but the tablet experience. So for a year, you're going to have this thing with Office 365 and all the stuff that comes with that. But it's a $100 tablet and you're going to get all this stuff. So I have not added to cart yet on the Toshiba $120 tablet, though I don't imagine I'll hold out much longer. At some point, I'll probably buy one. But I would be curious, if this, for you guys out there, tweet me at Todd Klindt, email me what you think about these cheap tablets and how they change how you're going to use Windows and how you're going to consume all that, because I think it's going to be a big deal. I think it's just going to show up, Windows is going to show up all over. People are going to be using these things for all kinds of stuff. But I'm very excited about all that. I've been a big fan. I completely ignored Windows 8 because it just wasn't that good. But getting a touch device last year at Tech Ed, and then Windows 8.1 coming out shortly after that, I'm all in right now for Windows. It's great stuff. So if you haven't played with Windows 8.1 on a touch device, grab one of these $120 tablets, and they're going to be shipping later this month. I think you'll change your tune. So I see we're at like 43 minutes, something like that. So I've got some other things. I'll talk about them next week or after, but we'll talk about that. So we'll move on to shameless self-promotion. Motion. All right. So next week, boy, this month is crazy. You might want to get out a piece of paper and a pen and write some of this down, because there's going to be a lot of stuff going on this month. Next week on the 15th, scratch that, I will be out in Boston for SP TechCon. So Shane and I will be doing this show on the road. Those of you that have seen it in person or downloaded the video of it afterwards, very little productive stuff gets talked about. Hopefully the topics that I didn't get talked about tonight will show up despite the fact that we're going to be doing it at SP TechCon. But the plan will be to do it at the same time, and it will be there. If you're going to be at SP TechCon, come find me. I don't know. I'm going to be doing it. I just don't know where yet. And Lori will be there, and Laura will be there. I don't know if they'll all be at the Netcast, but all that. So show up for that, and we'll get that out. So that's next week. Going to be weird, but I'll be at SP TechCon. So then I'll also be doing sessions there. I'm going to be doing an upgrade half-day session. I'll be doing a PowerShell session. We'll be doing a admin session. Shane and I will be doing a lightning talk. Andrew Connell is doing a panel on on-prem or moving to the cloud. I'll be voicing my opinions there, whether AC wants to hear them or not. To heck with that guy. This just in, Christina Wheeler in the chat room will also be at SP TechCon. You got to go now. The whole gang's going to be there. You'd be a fool not to. But that is next week, SP TechCon. Still time to buy tickets if you're in the Boston area. You can go to sptechcon.com. And last week they sent out a mailer that said next spring's SP TechCon, which the spring SP TechCon has traditionally been in San Francisco. They're moving it to Austin, little place south of here, Austin, Texas. So that will be interesting. I've never been to Austin. So I'm excited about that next spring for SP TechCon. That's next week. Now, you probably think to yourself, the week after that, he can't take 2 weeks off. Oh, yes, he can. 2 weeks from tonight, I will likely not be doing my Netcast because 2 weeks from tonight on the, wait, don't tell me this one, 8 plus 7, carry the 6, Buffalo. The 22nd of September, Monday the 22nd, I will be in Chicago. So you guys have probably already heard that next year Microsoft took Tech Ed and the SharePoint conference and MEC and MMS and all those, and they put them in and they mixed them all up, and they're making this super big uber duper, I don't even think uber duper is a word, conference in Chicago, May 4th through the 8th. In Chicago. I think I said that already. I will be in Chicago next week. I have been graciously asked by Microsoft, along with a whole bunch of other people, Laura Rogers also. They're showing a bunch of us folks the conference center and kind of telling us how they're going to put the conference on, and it's going to be pretty cool. So I want to give a shout out to Jared Shockley. He's the guy that hooked me up with that. So I will be gone in Chicago next week. I assume there's going to be things going on Monday night. I don't know. But Shane will probably be filling in for me in 2 weeks. So next week we'll be at SP TechCon. In 2 weeks, Shane will be filling in for me because I'll be in Chicago. Down there making myself just sick on Chicago-style pizza. Oh, yeah. Cannot wait. Yeah, so the round table is that's it. So Naomi Moneypenny's going to be there as well. So yes, the round table. So I think it's cool if I talk about that publicly and tweet about it and all that. I've seen other people do it. They've done this round table thing before. So I think you'll be hearing some stuff from that about me, from me. But that will be next week. So you're probably saying to yourself, my goodness. So he's going to be in Boston next week. He's going to be in Chicago the week after that. He's got to be home the Monday after that. Sadly, folks, I will not. You're probably going to get Shane 2 weeks in a row. Now, I know that's hard to swallow, but the Monday after that, the 29th, I will be in Stockholm for the SharePoint Exchange Forum, the 11th annual SharePoint Exchange Forum in beautiful Stockholm, Sweden. That's the 29th and the 30th. And because of the time zones and the internet connection and all that, I'm just not going to be able to do it. So I assume Shane will fill in for me there. While I'm at the SharePoint Exchange Forum, I'll be doing my load testing with Visual Studio session and the upgrade session as well. And then just doing every little thing that Yorin will let me do. Every time there's a stage and like a microphone that somebody's not guarding, I'll probably just run up and start talking. So that'll be a great time. I'll be there in 3 weeks. So looks like Christina will be there again. I think she was there last year also when we were on the cruise ship. So this month is just jam-packed with Todd doing everything except his job and his Netcast. So it's a good month to be me. So next week, Boston. The week after that, Chicago. The week after that, Stockholm. So now we're coming up on 50 minutes. I really need to get going. Thanks, everybody. Hopefully this recording went well, and that recording, the backup recording went well. The chat room, you guys have been great. And then in a month, we'll try this whole rig out again and see if it all still works. So thanks. Once again, if you've got questions, comments, whatever, you can hit me up on Twitter at Todd Klindt, or you can email me todd.klindt@rackspace.com. Thanks, everybody. Thanks again to the chat room, and you guys have a good night and a good week. Bye.